You see, Siemens papers are what you receive when you join the contract, when you join the union. Your social security account number serves as your Siemens papers in the Admiralty jurisdiction in that regulated activity that is called social security. Your driver's license serves as your Siemens papers in that regulated activity called driving. When you go to the National Forest and you get a camping permit, that serves as your Siemens papers for that activity of camping. When you get a marriage license, that marriage license serves as your Siemens papers in that activity called marriage. When you get a business license, that business license serves as your Siemens papers in that regulated activity called business. Now, if there are 37 of these regulated activities, 37 activities that you may be involved in which will bring you into Admiralty jurisdiction. And so we are on the great ship America and the great ship Britannia, and George Bush and Gordon Brown are our captains. Now, once you've signed up on that ship, and you're a crewman on the ship, and the second mate comes along and says to you, "Hey, swab the deck, fella," and you give him the finger, that's insubordination. That's punishable. Don't talk to the first mate about having rights. Crew members on a ship in a maritime adventure do not have rights. Rights don't come from George Bush. They don't come from Gordon Brown. Rights don't come from Congress or Parliament. They don't come from FEMA. Rights don't come from General Motors, IBM, or Microsoft. So when you're complaining about the People's Republic of New York or the People's Republic of London, you're complaining about the contracts that you have made. Now, all contracts are voluntary. There isn't a single obligatory contract on the whole planet. There is nothing that you are obliged to contract to. You have the right to contract and the right not to contract. You see, it's a bit like joining the army. That's a voluntary action, joining the army. But what goes on after you've joined and you've signed the contract is mandatory. Let's suppose you join the army and you're sitting on your bunk and the sergeant comes in and he says, "Hey, John, open up your footlocker, I want to inspect it." And you look at him and you say, "Sarge, have you got a search warrant?" Do you believe the sergeant needs a search warrant to search your footlocker? See, and here we are complaining about being in the People's Republic of Montreal and that we have no rights. But we waived all of our rights. We waived our rights when we got a national insurance number, when we got our social insurance number or our social security number. We waived our rights when we got the employment contract. We waived our rights when we got our driver's licenses and our marriage licenses, and we registered our children with the government. You see, we can't complain about the government trying to vaccinate our children. We can't complain about the social services getting involved with our children's lives and dragging them off to foster homes. We can't complain about the social worker knocking on our houses to check on our children, because they're not our children. They belong to the state. If you don't believe me, look it up. This is serious stuff. When you registered your child, you got a birth certificate. Look up the word registration, what that actually means. What have you done? What have we done to our children in registering them for the benefits? Whose children are they? They're not ours. They belong to the state. You belong to the state. And until I can resolve the situation, I belong to the state. We are wards of the state. We registered as children. Seriously, that's the state's kid you've got there in front of you. And they let you raise it. They let you put braces on his teeth. They let you wipe his bum. They let you take care of him until he's old enough to go to war. And then they take him and they send him off to Iraq as cannon fodder. You know, we say we have babies and we say to ourselves, "This is my kid." No, it's not. It's not your child. It belongs to the state. And you say, "This is your car." No, it's not. It belongs to the state. I can see that you're in possession of it, and I can see that you have the keys to it, and I can see that you're driving it. See, I don't think that's your car. Because on the front and the back of that car is a piece of tin. It's called a license plate or a registration plate. And I think that car is registered. Registered. Now, if you look up registration, property, ownership, chosen action, and equitable interest, I think it'll be clear to you that the state owns that car. You say, "Well, this is my wife." No, it's not. It's the state's woman, and you just have an equitable right of use. And vice versa for you ladies. Social worker doesn't need a search warrant. You've got to have a marriage license, a birth certificate, and citizenship to get the social worker to come and knock on your door. Come on, people, it's time to wake up. See, our ship's captains have wartime powers now. Wartime powers, granted to them by Congress and Parliament. George Bush can suspend habeas corpus tomorrow morning, and he can institute martial law tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And I don't have any reason to believe he's not going to do that at some point in the very near future. In fact, when he gets to the point when it comes to the end of his term, and he can't be re-elected anymore, I think that's exactly what he's going to do. Just like Adolf Hitler did. Oh, we'll have elections. Just like we did in 2000, 2004. Elections that are done primarily on computer, with no paper trail, and they can be controlled. You know, Joseph Stalin was a very wise man. He was a very naughty boy. He was brutal, tyrant. He was a wicked, evil fellow. That doesn't mean he didn't have street smarts. Doesn't mean he wasn't particularly intelligent in terms of common sense. But he made a very wise comment once. And he said, it's not who votes that counts. It's who counts the votes that counts. And our governments know that. And so everyone's complaining about there being no justice in the world at the moment. But I know that. I told you. It's not a justice system. We're in an adversarial system. When Congress and Parliament enact legislation like the Patriot Act or Corpus Juris, they're not acting in the interests of the common law or the course of the common law. They're acting in the course of admiralty, because that's where the money is. The state doesn't make any money off of the common law. That's a service that costs money. You know, state and local governments, traffic courts, and marriage licenses, that's money-making stuff right there. That's where governments rake in a fortune. It's taxation is what it boils down to. You know, Bush isn't wrong about all these searches that you hear about from the intellectual prostitutes on the media at the moment. And all of this nonsense about rights, that's all just political bull and smokescreen. There isn't anything that Bush is going after, or that has been going after, that he needs a warrant for. The president's not in violation of any laws. That's all been adjudicated long ago. You see, George isn't running a country. He's running a corporation. He's running the United States, which is a corporation. He doesn't have to bow down to the Constitution, because that's why he said it was just a piece of paper. He doesn't have to worry about the Constitution or your rights, because they're not a part of his corporate charter. The Constitution has been tolerated since the United States was incorporated all those years ago. The elements of the Constitution that you hold so dear have been tolerated all this time, and now he's just stripping them away, because they're impeding his commercial progress, the progress of his corporation. He can remove any element of the Constitution he wants, and he wouldn't be breaking any laws, because he's not operating in the common law which the Constitution is based on. You see, Iraq was a corporate takeover. It's nothing personal, it's just business. There's oil there, and we want it. We're a corporation, and we're going to buy you out, in a fashion. He's operating in admiralty jurisdiction as a businessman running a corporation. We left the common law jurisdiction. We volunteered ourselves into admiralty jurisdiction for the benefits. We waived our rights for the benefits. You don't have any rights at all when it comes to admiralty jurisdiction. You don't have a right to privacy. There's no contingency for privacy in admiralty jurisdiction. None whatsoever. There's no rights to have a gun in admiralty jurisdiction. And that's why all you guys out there in the States with licensed weapons, you're the guys that are going to lose your weapons first, because you registered them. And as I said earlier, once you register something, it is no longer yours. You hand over ownership of it to the government. The government now owns your weapon, and they can remove it from you anytime they like, because it's theirs. They have a share in the contract with you, and they can call in that share at any point and take your weapon from you. And you guys out there that have got unregistered weapons and unlicensed weapons, you're going to be fine, as long as you don't register them. If you want them to belong to the government, go ahead, register them, get a license. You are not obliged to register for anything. You are not obliged to get a license for anything. At all. You see, the word they use is must. You must register for this and you must register for that. Must is legally synonymous with may, if you look it up in Black's Law Dictionary. See, they cannot oblige you to do anything because they don't have that power, because we're dealing with statutory legislation. You're not obliged to register your children. You're not obliged to register your vehicle. You're not obliged to have a driver's license. But unfortunately, they're buying up all of the land, And so even if you drive an unregistered vehicle without a driver's license, you're still driving your private property on theirs, and they can enforce their policy upon you for that reason. So you're going to try and drive your unregistered, unlicensed conveyance of the day on their private roads, you're going to have some trouble there. See, these contracts that you've been coerced into making can be annulled because they're fraudulent.